Good evening. My name is Sofia Cordova, and today I'm going to talk about India. My group and I divided the presentation into these six topics. So, to start, I'm going to talk about the history. Well, before colonization, during the Vedic period, in 750 before Christ to 600 before Christ, India was inhabited by Dravidians who were short and dark skinned primitives who had imposed themselves on other native tribes. They live in communities and have developed a great civilization, and they dominated agriculture, trade, and the bronze industry. His religion was polytheistic, and they worshipped the mother goddess, a fertility god, and the jungle animals. And during the Brahmanical period, in 600 before Christ to 322 before Christ, India lived under the hegemony of the priestly class. In this period, we distinguish two fundamental stages, pre-Buddha and Buddhism. In pre-Buddha stage, there was a great development of the Hindu people under the power of the Brahmins, who in the second millennium before Christ introduced the horse, iron weapons, and the chariot to India. They subdued the native and formed small autonomous kingdoms. And in Buddha stage, the Hindu people react against the high views of Brahmanism, um, which culminated in the triumph of the Buddhist doctrines. Northern India was also unified, and the first great empire was created, which was called Moya. And during colonization time, the case of wealth and power drew Europeans to shores in India. During the arrival of the Portuguese navigator Vasco da Gama in 1498, the Portuguese converted to Christianity, who challenged Arab supremacy. In 1510, the Portuguese took over the city of Goa, which had previously been controlled by Muslims. This city became the center of their commercial and political power, and their control it for nearly 4.5 centuries. Competition among European nations led to the founding of trading companies in England and in the Netherlands, but eventually the Dutch took the lead, and by 1609 they were trade slaves for the plantations in Indonesia and for the cloth factories. In 1639, the British arrived and they settled in Madras and began trading along the coast. And in 1717, they were given permission to settle in 38 towns, becoming the administrative of the finished towns on Madras, Calcutta, and Bombay. And after colonization, at the end of the 19th century, India took the first steps towards independence with the appointment of natives advisors to the Viceroy of India and the creation of provincial councils whose members were Indians. In the First World War, India was impoverished due to war takes and loans to support to the British economy, what caused demonstrations, strikes, and riots. The Congress Party was divided, so Gandhi chose to promote the peaceful refusal to collaborate with the authorities. However, he decided to set a limit by not demanding the not payment of general takes. And after the Second World War, Pakistan separated from India for August 15 in 1947 due to religious riots that caused the death of hundreds of thousands of people. This is how the Indo-Pakistani conflict began. Um, After the departure of the British, India made a slow progress. There were economic reforms in the early 1990s, and that fueled tremendous growth. So India is currently considered an emerging nation with a great potential for development. And now let's talk about linguistic and cultural diversity. The Constitution of India in 1950 established that English will continue to be used for 15 more years after the promulgation of the Constitution. In addition, the constitutional text admits 18 more languages that may be officially adopted by different states for administrative purpose and also as means of communication between the states and national governments. According to a census conducted in 1961, the individual languages in India number approximately 1,662, but Hindi and English are the only two official national languages in India. In addition, there are 21 other languages in various states of the country which co-official status, which are Assamese, Manipuri or Methi, Bengali, Sanskrit, Bolu, Telugu, Kashmiri, Oriya, Dogri, Tamil, Gujarati, Eastern Punjabi, Kannada, Santali, Konkani, Sindhi, Mijili, Nepali, Malabar, Marathi, and Urdu. Okay. Um, the major religions of India are Judaism, Islam, Sikhism, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism, Zoroastrianism, Judaism, and their Baha'i faith. Uh, India is a land where people of different religions and cultures live in harmony, and this harmony is seen in the celebrations on festivals. The message of love and brotherhood is expressed by all the religions and cultures of India. Well, being a woman in India, it's not easy because their role in society is totally secondary and they are often perceived as an economic burden for their families. While men can play, study, and work, women must make do to household chores, issues such as remedies marriages, and drawly are the order of their day there. Many times, it's the parents who choose the future husband of their daughters. Dairy also plays a fundamental role in marriages. This concept refers to the amount of wealth which the parents give to their future son. It's low in compensation for agreeing to marry with their daughter. And not only that, but their parents would also bear the expense of weddings. When the dowry often is of title value, there is a risk that no one will want to marry that girl. The social norms and practices are governed primarily by patriarchal ideologies that define the role of the man and the role of woman. This is something that is perceived from childhood, since education and every food and priority says in the case of men. In addition, from an early age, men and women live separately, so that interaction between the two sexes is scarce. Thus, the bonds of friendship between men are intensified, and this lack of relationship between the sexes often means that men's first sexual experience is with their friends. The cultural practices are in business. The price factor is of vital importance to the people, since in Indian culture, handling is fundamental. Indian managers are very good negotiators and very smart, but they also tend to change their minds constantly. So in their culture, the word no it's not in their vocabulary. For our Western culture, it's tend to be difficult to do business with them. Before doing business with India, it's important to know its culture because behavior and that are deeply rooted in its religion and customs. Um, it's important to greet formally, but as far possible, don't make physical contact for the greeting. Their languages used for business is English, and since the majority of its population has knowledge of his language, and it's one of its official languages. And for the Indian culture, time is not so important, such as when making business appointments, there are uncomplicated with punctuality and don't consider it disrespectful. Mm, the stereotypes we choose to deconstruct are first, Indians speak Hindu, because many foreigners make the mistake of confusing religion with languages in India. Hindu is the religion and Hindi is the languages, but not all Indians speak Hindi. Hindi is mainly spoken in the north, but languages of Dravidian origin are spoken in the south. Um, each region of India has its own languages, so Hindi is a second language for many people. In addition, English is widely spoken throughout the country. The second is that Indians don't have a quality education. This is really false because education is extremely important in India, and even the poor families in the village strive to give their children the best possible education because they know that is the key to their future. So doctors and engineers to top the list of professions in India. There are also many business schools, and the government works hard to provide quality higher education. So, in general, the educational system is competitive and challenging. The third is India's worship millions of gods. There are people who think that the Indians believe in several gods as with multiple heads and arms. When in fact what we believe is that God is in everything. They think that all things are manifestations of the only source and creator of reality called Brahman. Um, Therefore, every living and non-living being is seen as sacred. Each of many guns of Hinduism represents an individual aspect of Brahman. The fourth is that the profession of an India is defined by his surname. India was previously known for a rigid caste system, but this is slowly changing. It's designed since Vedic times, but it was during the British rule that Indians were especially classified according to caste. When India gained independence, the government wanted to build a casteless society. So today, you can assume that someone will follow a certain profession just because or their last names. However, caste is still important part of people main sense, particularly when it comes to arranged marriages. And finally, the fifth is all Indians do yoga and say namaste. The growth of spirituality has sparked interest and fascination, which is why many foreigners think of India as a spiritual mecca with a mystical culture. However, the yoga practice in the West of different from the tradition practice in India. Also, not everyone incorporates yoga into their daily life. Will Namaste, it's an integral part of Indian culture. It's not longer a universal greeting in a modern Indian society. These days, in urban areas, it's usually reserved for formal situations and interaction within the elderly person. It's more common in regions where pure Hindi is spoken, and it's less relevant when Hindi it's not the first language. To continue, I'm going to talk about the similarities and difference between India and Colombia. The similarities that these two cultures have that as they have advanced in history, both countries have given greater value to women, giving them the same importance and right in public office. They are also similar in prejudice. Both countries are recognized under the same poor but happy. And although they are happy in both, the truth is that in India poverty has decreased by improving education and work happenings doesn't end. Another similarity that these countries have is that in both countries, most of the inhabitants think that beauty depends of the skin tone. The whiter, the better looking. And one of the most noticeable difference is related to what is considered the stereotype of perfect woman. While here a perfect woman is curvy, in India the perfect woman is fat. Another big difference in women is that over there women use jewelry in exaggeration. Here they don't. Here it's more subtle and delicate. Continuing with women, here their clothes are lighter. They show more skin, and there women usually cover themselves more. Also, very rarely women go to the spa to get their nails done. Something that every day it's more normal in Colombian women. As a last difference, in India it's very rare that women make changes in color of cut their hair. And here it's very normal to see women with red curls and extravagant colors. The role of English in the culture and its positionality regarding other languages. Okay. After gaining independence from the United Kingdom in 1947, English remained as official languages of the new Dominion of India and later the Republic of India. Only in a few 100,000 Indians, or less 0.1% of the total population, speak English as their first language. And around 30% of the Indian population can speak English to some extent. Officially, English has a status of a system language, but in fact, it's the most important language of India. After Hindi, it's the most spoken language in India, as probably the most real and written language in India. Indians who know English will always try to show that they know English. English symbolizes in Indians means better education, better culture, and higher intellect. Moreover, those who know it often miss it with Indian languages in their conversations. It's also usual among Indians to probably more to speak fluent English in the middle of their conversations. English also serves as their communicator among Indians who speak different languages, and it's very important. It's consistent as the legal, financial, educational, or in business. The reason India gives us importance to English is related to the fact that India was a British colony. Okay, finally, these are the biographies. So thank you very much for your attention.